Up next is the conversation with Lon Milo DuQuette, a living legend. He has changed the way Western occultism is perceived and has made it available to a vast number of people by having a way of speech that is much more accessible. He is the author of over 20 books. He is part of the governing body of the Ordo Templi Orientis, the O.T.O. He is the Archbishop of the Iglesia Gnostica and just a mine of knowledge. This is one of those times where everybody gets to see me fangirl over someone. Make sure you guys stick around. It's an amazing interview.
You got that golden triangle right there, right in the eye, too.
I didn't set it up this way. It'll be gone in a minute here. So it's going down over the potting shed in the backyard.
No, don't worry. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity. We're both huge fans. We've read a lot of your work, and it's just, we're thrilled for the opportunity to speak with you.
Well, thank you. And it's, I'm just glad I'm just sitting around, like I told you, I just, actually, I just finished up the book and sent it to the publisher yesterday afternoon. It was quite a project, and it's something that you live with and drive your family crazy with, for a long time. And when it's out the door, you feel like, you're sending your child off to college or something. So,
how long did it take you to finish it?
47 years.
Dang. Yeah. Now, is this? Are we talking about the book about Jesus?
No, we're talking about the working title is building your house of cards. It's a tarot book. About 30 years ago, Constance and I designed and she painted and colored in the tarot deck, the Tarot of Ceremonial Magic. And U.S. Games had it published for a number of years, and it's gone through various publishers. And this is what the newest box looks like. Okay, and it's not the prettiest deck in the world, but it's as far as it goes, it's very correct.
Yeah.
In so much as it has a lot of collateral magical doodads that go with it. The tarot is organized on sort of basic Kabbalistic structure. That structure plugs all tarot decks into a giant harmonic, if you will. That same harmonic is all of the Hermetic stuff and Kabbalistic stuff. And so we've got elements of, the most obvious is the astrological organization, with the 22 trumps being each one of those paths there you see as a tarot card, too, or a tarot trump. And then all of the lesser arcana have their place in the Sephiroth, or the circles there.
Right.
So, you're holding a freaking universe to get when you have a deck of tarot cards. And so they have all of their correspondences to, the most exciting is the Enochian magic elements, correspondences. But it even crosses where other systems have that same structure. Even the I Ching, the Chinese Book of Changes, at least 16 of the court cards of the tarot correspond directly to 16 of the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching, and that's really helpful to me because I hate court cards when they come up in a reading. Okay. What do you say to a person? Is this you got a black horse, or what? What does this mean? But there's sub-elemental mixes, like, wands are fire, and so the knights or the kings are the fire sub-element within the court card family. So the Knight of Wands is fire of fire. And there's a fire of fire I Ching hexagram. And that's been used as a fortune cookie, do-it-yourself divinatory answer for about 8,000 years, And so it's already ready-made for when in doubt. What is that court card made? Well, if the person doesn't have a black horse, or it's not something like that, then you could say, well, I think you've got a fortune cookie type answer here. This one says you're in an explosive situation, and it's got a lot of energy happening. Somebody has just blown their freaking lid off in front of you, and you're dealing with that shock. And they go, yeah, that's what that is. So there's that. And then there's the Goetic spirits, the Solomonic demons, if you will. There's a couple of those on every one of the small cards. And the angels, the Kabbalistic angels of the Shemhamphorishan.
Just about to ask.
Yeah.
So are you saying that just by being able to tap into these already established archetypes, anybody could come up with a tarot just by attaching enough correspondences?
That's right. And that's what the new book's about. The new book, if you go along with it and take part in the fun of it, you'll design your own tarot deck based on your own level of understanding. And all I'm doing in the book is giving you that little nudge toward that understanding. And I'm supplying 78 uncolored versions of the deck, along with all of the color charts and things that and suggestions on how they can customize their own deck. So I'm excited about the project. I really am, and it's been a pain in the neck.
It sounds like a lot of work. Did you draw yourself in this one? I know in one of the tarot decks you were the magician, right, and a few others.
Well, I got Crowley as the magician there.
Nice.
But I'm like the chariot, and I'm the hanged lawn, the emperor. My wife's on a couple cards, and my son's on a couple cards, and a couple of our family friends are on a couple cards. So
that's awesome. And if it's anything like your book with the Understanding the Thought Tarot, when I first started dabbling into the tarot, it's really hard to read a Crowley book and kind of understand the meaning of what it's supposed to mean, right? And your text was very, very clear and put in a lot of good analogy, so that way, people can understand.
Yes. I tell people I write the book that I wished I could have read, in my first 15 years of spinning my wheels.
Yeah, one of the things we often talk about was when I grew up starting to learn magic back in the early 90s, and it was nothing like what it is now. I often tell James, I used to have to ride my bike and hope to find something that spoke about it, go out to the middle of the desert, and there I was trying to pretend I knew what the book said. I mean, you got the most out of very little text. And now there's an overwhelming amount of text out there.
And, a lot of it is very, very good. And but it's still hard. And especially when you sort of seriously want to peel back the skin of the Kabbalistic roots of it all, it's hard enough. Why make it harder?
Yeah,
Trying to sound erudite, and I'm a funky guy. I mean, I'm a klutz and I'm lazy. As a matter of fact, I sort of had to write all this stuff down because I'm so lazy that I have to explain it to myself. And that's turned into an asset because it is elegantly simple.
What do you feel Crowley left out of everything he wrote, and how would you express that?
Wow, what he left out was a basic understanding of the capacity of the general population to understand or appreciate where he was coming from. He got it a little bit. Okay, he got it enough, and you could see follow throughout his entire career. It's heartbreaking in a way because he knows he's got a great grasp of everything. Not only that, he had such a command of the English language. I mean, awesome. Then he had this over the top poetic voice. Okay, and perhaps that's the reason that he was I don't want to say chosen, but that's one of the reasons that he fit the role of an old-fashioned prophet.
Yeah.
Say what you will about Isaiah. He was crazy. But whatever he was, it just poured out of him.
Yeah.
And that's all a prophet needs to be. A prophet needs to be in the right place to give voice to the spiritual reality of what's going on in the consciousness pool around him, whether that's a tribe, or whether that's a country, or whether it's a religion. He has the eye to see the truth and is not afraid to tell it.
Yeah.
Not only that, he doesn't even make a decision whether to tell it or not. It just pours out of him like a song. Okay. And Crowley had that. And there's whole books of his early poetry where it's just pouring out, almost unfocused. And finally, when he had his wet finger solidly plugged into the light socket upstairs, and the good stuff was coming through, he just couldn't stop it. Some of the things that people that study Crowley, especially in the first years they study him, they overlook it because they want to get into the magic and they want to get. But his holy books, okay, there's 13 documents that he calls Class A documents, and most of them came through between 1904 and 1909, around 9. And there's 13. They're published now as the Holy Books of Thelema. And people think, well, I'm going to learn magic when I... No, it's like a prose poem of you question the value of reality as you know it.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
When you read this, you go, I don't know what he's saying, but the pictures he just drew in my mind, I like that. That's, and the more you get into that, the more you start to think, yeah, that guy's one of those prophet things. Okay.
and it sucks you in. I remember, I was just a kid. I completely was lost and had no idea. But what you just described, it completely put me back to that time. That's exactly how I felt, where it was just so mystifying, and there you lived in this world that you were reading. So we talk about this 13 writings coming through, and then there was a phase where Crowley wrote so much we could almost see the evolution of his thinking and his writings, and you kind of getting a sense of him working on the psychological model at first, and then towards the end, it evolved into a more spiritual model. Can we speak on this? I seem to be stuck on the psychological model still. Is this the barrier to magic?
No. As a matter of fact, it's something you don't have to get over.
Okay.
Take that with you. Okay, take it with you all the way. That stays as valid in its own Idaho. Look, the Kabbalists say that, or they chop up the spectrum of human consciousness, of the frequency, like a radio frequency of consciousness from the lowest end, that's sort of physical, then it goes up into the mental and the intellectual, and then it blends into the really
Eric?
the soul intuition is what they call it, and then all the way at the top is the life force itself, and the wall-to-wall consciousness of singularity, of which that's really us. Okay, that's
Yes,
really the psychological aspect of it. It's totally valid, will always be valid. Even when you hit your singularity, it'll be valid. You don't leave anything behind. The whole idea is you do take it with you. Okay? Where are you going to leave it behind?
How does that play into the spiritual model then, and how do they differ from the psychological in your point of view?
They don't have to differ, in my point of view. I invented this rabbi and wrote a couple books as this.
Great books, by the way.
Are you talking about Ching and Qabalah?
Yeah. And one of the sayings of the rabbi is, it's all in your head.
Yeah.
But you just have no idea how big your head is. Okay. So that's how I take it. And I get a kick out of it. And sometimes I'm irritated by other magicians, who are far more adept magicians than I am, saying, "Oh, DuQuette says it's all psychological." No, okay. I really mean it, okay? If you knew how big your head is, you'd realize there is nothing outside of your head. There is no outside.
Right. So it's like that old saying, God experiences himself through us. Everybody is just the same thing, God experiencing himself through different aspects.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So it can be simultaneously true.
Yeah.
Yes, it's all psychological. And when you look at Crowley, put him on a psychological microscope, it is so Freudian. And you can just think, oh, you hate your mother, don't you, Crowley? And but it drives his whole thing. It's part of the palette that makes him a colorful person. It also gives me wonderful leave to forgive myself of my freaking hang-ups and baggage.
Yeah.
And it's poignant how Crowley was just so out front with it, just letting it all hang out. And it's also good to know, or it's well to remember, how often he doesn't learn his own lessons. You know, he's bad with people his whole life. He just kind of screws them over, but have you ever met or got to know or engaged with a real life genius? I mean, a genius, an artist, or a someone you just know their brain is just operating so much that they can focus on one thing to the exclusion of everything else. And when it's an artist, a musician, a filmmaker, a dancer, when it's an artist genius, they don't give a flying whatever about anything but their art. Their art is their God. And if you get in the way between them and their God, they don't even know when they're insulting you. They don't even know when they're just throwing you under the bus.
Yeah.
That's Crowley too.
Yeah. So, in addition to him having this unique character, there was that period of time when it's talked about that he tried to confront Karansin and so on, and then there's the ever nagging question of, well, who really wrote the O.T.O ritual? If it was Karansin or Crowley? What's your opinion or take on that?
Well, maybe you could ask Karansin and look, Karansin is all of our Karansins, okay?
Yeah.
It's not a being, okay? It's a level of consciousness that's right there where I'm pointing. It's Da'ath. The top three Sephira there, that's called the supernal triad. I don't know if you can see that okay there. That's the supernal triad. That's the singularity. That's the whole ball of wax. That's Kether. That's the smooth point. There is nothing outside that. That's the one. That is the one. You can't go outside that one because all the outsides are inside that one. Okay. 2 is not even a number. 2 is just one reflecting itself. It's not a thing in itself. It's just a reflection of 1. And 3 got itself invented immediately when 2 got itself reflected from 1, because now there's a difference. There's the realization that the 2 is not the 1. That's right. The third condition. So 1, 2, and 3 are not 3 numbers. They're just 1 thinking about itself.
Right.
I think you explained that very beautifully in your books, and it really helped me grasp it as someone who was new to the occult, was, of that idea of the singularity, realizing itself, the consciousness aspects, and then basically realizing the subconscious aspects that it's not realizing its own reflection. And, and you said it very clearly yourself right now that they're not separate entities. It's just itself thinking about itself.
Itself, right. And the old Greek myth about Saturn eating his own children. Okay, and as long as he was eating his own children, there wasn't a universe. There wasn't the Olympian gods. Okay, there was just this pure cycle of potentiality, because it's going back. And so if we'd look at number 3 there as Saturn, Eden, now, and that's Saturn's wife. Kids, don't quote me here. And as long as Saturn is eating his kids, there is no rest of the tree of life.
Yeah.
Okay. There is no manifest universe. There is no what we call the macrocosm. There's just this titanic cycle of
Right.
Okay. But when the Trinity itself, when the supernal triad reflects itself, it reflects itself in that second triad. And that second triad, as soon as it got itself reflected, instantly created a third triad. And then here, hanging like a dingleberry off of the butt of the universe, it is number 10. Okay, reflection of a reflection of a reflection of the singularity.
Yeah.
Now, back to Corone Zone. This is all to talk about Corone Zone. Corone Zone is what lives in the mirror that reflects the supernal triad to a manifested universe. And it's as high as your meat brain can process things. So the macrocosm itself, which is usually this kind of that area there we can look at, okay? That's as high as our thinking process can take us. We can't think our way into the supernal triad, okay? Because there's too much meat in our brain. There's the meat doesn't go through the sieve, okay?
Yeah.
And there's a higher level of consciousness we have to break through. And Corone Zone is the last conversation you have with yourself as you're getting ready to pass through the sieve and leave your meat brain behind. So it's a never-ending conversation. This area of consciousness is where most world religions, as we know them, come from.
Yeah.
It comes from a guy that says, I figured it out and I can tell you how it is. Okay, that's Corone Zone talking. Okay, when they say, I know how it is and I can tell you about it too, you know. So that's
It's interesting.
So that's the level of consciousness Crowley was passing through on the desert with Victor Newberg, doing the Enochian Aethers, which is a technique to step-by-step raise your consciousness up to that level. So it wasn't so much that Crowley met the devil and then the devil took over Crowley's career. No.
Yeah.
The Corone's the devil. We should all be so lucky to get so high to make that confrontation, is what I'm saying. And if ever we're going to get to the supernal triad, we're going to have to do that too.
Yeah. And before we do that, within that same column, different below that is where the Holy Guardian Angel is supposed to reside. So are you telling me we are supposed to first reach conversation with the Holy Guardian Angel before we get to the conversation with Corone Zone?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Not only
has the Holy Guardian Angel been worked up to something more than it really is? Is this something that we really are always doing already?
Yeah. And we don't have to call it the Holy Guardian Angel or anything. Usually anybody that we would consider, a saint.
Yeah.
Yeah, not so much a Roman Catholic saint, but a person that actually loves us all, because that's the best way they can love themselves, kind of thing. And but there are levels of consciousness. The yogis will try to say, well, that's the opening of the heart chakra. Okay. Holy Guardian Angel experience is the balanced opening of the Anahat chakra. It's exactly what it is.
Right, combining those root chakras with the spiritual chakras above, correct?
You got it. You got it. And they correspond to actual levels of consciousness. In other words, whatever plateau we're currently working off of. The plateau of okay, where is my self-identity now? Okay, and the knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel is when you plug your wet finger in the first light socket, and you're not even you till you've gained knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel. The reason it's so important to magicians is because magicians want to get out and change stuff around and do stuff and wag your wand and kill at a distance and all sorts of fun. Yeah. And but until they get the Holy Guardian Angel, they don't know what is or is not in their own best interests. They're not firing on all cylinders. They're like a baby kangaroo that's still in the pouch. You're not out. You're not who you are.
You mentioned that you don't have to call it a Holy Guardian Angel. So when we talk about, for example, the Abramelin, that's not an entity of its own. I mean, the Holy Genius, the Holy Spirit, the Holy Guardian Angel, consciousness. I mean, what do you call it?
The higher self.
Your higher self. Yeah, these are all the same thing.
Yeah, if you apply that meaning to those words, it's the same thing. The objectivity or the subjectivity question of the Holy Guardian Angel, they're both correct up to a point. They are objective. It is an objective other spiritual character as long as you aren't married to it.
Gotcha.
Okay.
It sounds very chaos. But this leads us to another question. I mean, we can you tell us a little bit about the whole Horus formula, the Horus Aeon, and is the next step to magic Chaos Magic? Was Crowley the first Chaos magician?
I don't understand a proper definition of chaos magic. Okay.
That's because it's chaotic.
Yeah, but chaos is the ultimate order. Chaos is number 2 there on that tree of life. That's the chaos. Okay. So chaos magic is there's a certain amount of dynamics and chaotic exchanges of forces and balancing and unbalancing things in the same way that you have to stir up a lot of mud at the bottom of a stream to get gold.
Yeah.
So the evolution of the magical formula is not not so much going from Horus into chaos. There's enough freaking chaos in Horus to last us for several aeons. So it's to me, it's another aspect, another facet, another tool of the Aeon of Horus, and not an aeonic thing in itself. The aeonic thing, we talk about it because we're giving meaning to something that's hard to describe otherwise. The Crowley paints a picture of humanity as a whole going through major phases in consciousness, and it's doesn't have to be spooky, doesn't have to be called an Egyptian god name, doesn't have to be called a Inca god. Call it anything you want. It's just a simple thing. Humanity in a time-space sequence basically changes and evolves the conscious self-identity.
Yeah.
So there was a period, and this is Crowley's sort of explanation, and anthropologically, you can debate it all you want. But he saw in the mythology of Egypt about the goddess Isis and her husband, brother, whatever, her squeeze, Osiris, okay, and then Horus, their baby. Okay. Now there's all sorts of aspects to it because Horus has his twins, and those twins have twins too, which pretty much trigger your chaotic thing. You got the Apept and Set, you know. Yeah. But that's another can of worms. But you got Isis, and he saw Isis as a period of human consciousness where we were pretty much focused on just filling our bellies. Okay, and if you want to say, well, that's the hunter-gatherer thing, or that was all we were kind of thinking about is how am I going to get through the day, and should I eat that or should I eat that? Should I eat you? You know, and all we thought about was nourishment. And at night around the campfire, if we had fire yet, who knows? They started to think that the earth is sort of like a big woman and like a big breast. And we get our nourishment directly from her. Okay. And isn't that cool? It's sort of like Anita over here, you know, and they didn't really have a 9-month attention span. But they did have natural urges and stuff like that. And so they had sex just like elk had sex, and you know, and dinosaur. I don't know. It was natural, but they didn't have a 9-month attention span. So as far as they knew, all of a sudden, Anita over there, I beg your pardon, Anita's out there. All of a sudden, she starts to grow. She starts to grow. Not only that, she grows for 9 cycles of the moon. And at the end of those 9 cycles, I mean, this is all spooky stuff, okay? She pops. And when she pops out in a stream of blood and water comes a miniature Og. And as far as they can see, it's all coming from her.
Yeah.
Look what she did. Wow. And it's just like the Earth. The Earth just, I don't know, it just, plants grow at certain times and the animals come and eat the plants. We eat the plants, we eat the animals. Wow. Earth is a goddess.
Yeah.
Anita is more than, she's the priestess of the Earth goddess. And she's connected directly to that moon, because that moon, all it has to do is go woo, 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 for 9 times, and out pops another Og. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the age of Isis. And all we was nourishment. And so that's where the level of human consciousness was. That was the magical formula of the age. So when they made up little rituals to keep the moon going like that, or when they made up little rituals to keep Nitas growing like that, and when they made little rituals to keep the animals fed and all of that, it was all based on that formula. It was a working formula, and it was based on their observation of nature as they understood it. And that's all a magical formula is your self-identity in an environment of your understanding how nature works. And after a while, they got themselves a 9-month attention span. And they realized that if there wasn't that roll in the hay with Anita and Og, Anita was not going to grow. Okay, or somebody, you know. And they started to put 2 and 2 together. You know, the moon may be going like that all the time, but the sun comes up over here in the summertime. We got all these plants and all these leaves and all these animals coming our way. And when the sun comes up way over there, it gets dark really early, and they started to figure out, at the same time they figured out where babies came from, they figured out that the sun was important, and that the sun's rays had to penetrate the ground to get the plants to or the seeds to germinate. And they started to put that together, and they started to realize that the sun is the source of this stuff, and the moon is and the earth is the mother of it. But without the sun, nothing was going to work. And so that the pendulum started to swing, and fathers became important then, and kings took over from on a geopolitical way. That's what happened. Kings took over the matriarchies. Okay.
Yeah.
And the goddesses then became the spouses and concubines to the gods. But the gods had an Achilles heel in that they, like the sun, died. They died. Okay. And that sun, there's no guarantee that sun is going to keep going up in the morning, higher and higher and higher, or lower and lower and lower, until there's night all the time.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee. There's no guarantee that the sun's not going to go extinct. Not only that, every night is a reminder that the sun's over there dying in the west, and there's no guarantee that it's not going to come up again. You see life, death, life, death, life, death. Life comes from death. Life comes from death. And the formula changed. Humanity's formula changed. And all it took would be a couple of savvy shysters to say, I can guarantee that the sun will come up in the morning, but you got to do what I say.
Right.
Okay. And sure enough, if you did what the priest said, the sun came up every morning. It worked. Okay. That's the formula of Osiris. Life comes from death. It's apparently true. Okay, so it works, and that formula is still holding sway.
Yeah.
I turn on the news, and I still see the tragedies and the crimes and the sorrow that clutching onto that formula is still causing right now.
Yeah.
The formula of Horus, though, is that the sun doesn't die. The sun stays on. And enough of us deep down inside know that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're not knee-jerk programmed to trigger that death, life. The sun stays on all the time. We stay on all the time. If we're going to talk about eternal life, it's something that's not going to happen after we die. Eternal life is happening right now. If we're on right now, we're always on. We've never been off. There ain't no off. That's the formula of Osiris. Okay.
Horus.
Oh, excuse me. Thank you.
And so do we have a schema for what's after Horus? And is that the singularity? We do?
Yeah.
What is it?
And it's right there in the book of the law, too. And most of us Aeon of Horus people are already, the consciousness of the next age is already dawning on us. Okay. And that is the age of, say what you, in the book of the law, it calls it Hrumacus. Hrumacus takes over at the end of the age of Horus, or takes over from Horus. And Hrumacus, the Mach in Hrumacus is Maat, the goddess of justice.
Yeah.
Okay. So the obviously, especially when you read the third chapter of the book of the law, which is so wild and crazy and so violent and so war and this craziness, that the next step, it's going to be, okay, gang, let's balance this out. Okay. It's the goddess justice, the Greek Thamas and Themet. That is the next stage. Now, the idea that in the Aeon in any Aeon, the adherents or the followers of any sort of manifested religion, they manifest the formula of the age. Okay. The followers do. The congregation. The adepts of the age have a job to do, and that job is to bring in the next age. Standing on the firm foundation of the current age, they then set to work to bring in the next age. So the adepts of, or the adherents of one age manifest the formula. The adepts of the age labor to bring in the next one. So
does this give them a spirit of rebellion?
Yes. Okay. And revolution. Okay.
Yeah.
Not just rebellion, but revolution. But
does this make magicians inherently rebellious?
In this case, obviously we see the third chapter craziness going on right now. Don't even have to get superstitious about it. Just turn on the news.
Yeah.
But the arising consciousness is one that can only be described by me anyway as justice, not revenge, justice, readjustment, adjustment. So the dawning consciousness is a new form of what for a last couple of ages has been called compassion. But in this age, it's not self-sacrifice compassion. It's not knee-jerk, I'm going to go to heaven if I'm compassionate. It's a new, mature consciousness of all social justice around you, that you cannot be a fully functioning individual while others around you are either unnecessarily suffering or unnecessarily disadvantaged. And it's not that you're not being a good unselfish or selfish Thelemite. No, it's in my Horus selfish self-interest that I live undisturbed by unhappy people.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like a little bit anarchistic, the breaking down of social systems.
It's anarchistic with the biggest capital A that you can possibly think about. But it's only works if you are self-actualized and self-regulated.
Yeah.
There is no law beyond do what thou wilt. That's the prime directive.
Right.
And if anything, if all the rest of the book of the law disappeared and everything else, there was only one thing chiseled on a big monolith someplace. Thou hast no right but to do thy will. There is no law beyond do what thou wilt. Okay.
And I guess we should touch on that a little bit then. What's the most effective way you found to find your truest will?
Be as lazy as you can possibly be.
Please elaborate.
Be transcendently lazy.
Yeah. Do less, achieve everything, right?
And I'm just me. Everybody, comes into this dimension with their own particular talents and baggage. So I can only speak for myself. But I tell people I'm a lazy person. They say, "Oh, you're just joking." No, I'm really lazy, and I've never had. I have dreams. I have a certain amount of aspiration, generically, the only aspiration I truly have is I want to be happy. And I had sort of a bone disease, and I was had to be carried around for the first few years of my life. My dad took me out in the backyard in Lakewood. I was probably 3, and it was early evening, and the stars were coming out, and we saw a star, and I was going, star, and he said, if you wish on this star, the first star you see, before you look at any other stars, you make a wish on the star. And it was such a glorious moment. Okay. And I was as high as I could be on my dad's shoulders. And I looked at the star, and all I could think of is, I just want to be happy. I want to be as happy as I am right now. That's all I want. And it is all I want. Okay. I have no goals. I have no ambition. I'm a bum.
Yeah. Well, you definitely come across as the happiest occultist out there. And the friendliest.
From a mental illness, but but the thing is, I'm not attached. I've never been attached to a goal, and I've learned, and I guess not everybody can do this, but I'm 70. I'll be 76 in July, and it's worked so far. I try to do the only thing I can do at any given moment.
Right.
Okay. And if that fits in with a greater trajectory of a project I'm on, or a song that I'm writing, or friendships and things like that, fine. I only do what it appears to be the only thing to do. I guess I don't like to make any decisions. So I try to put myself in a position where the decisions make themselves. Yeah.
Right.
So,
yeah. You mentioned your father. Your father was a brother Mason, and you've come into Masonry at a later stage after Magick. What was that experience? How did Masonry enhance, if at all, your magical practice? And how do you see your Masonry compared to your father's?
well, I think one of the most important things that Masonry offers is that which is not different than my father's. Okay, there's a moment, and you'll recognize the moment at the very, very beginning, where you're in a position where you can't see what's going on, and you can only hear what's going on, and something was said to the effect that this guy's here to do what we've all done.
Yeah.
That we've all done forever.
Yeah.
And it's said much better than that. You know how it is. I almost exploded. I was there with my father. I was there with Benjamin Franklin. I was there with Voltaire. I was. it really blew my mind. And then when the doors open and you can see stuff, every Kabbalistic bone in my body was twitching. And it's like I was presented, and they did it perfectly. Okay, they had these old farts. The average age was like 7, but they had everything memorized, just gorgeous, and their floor work was maybe a little slow, but it was absolutely. And it was like they were presenting me with the secret of the universe in a casket that I had the key to.
Yeah.
Okay. And it didn't matter to me that they might not have had the key. And it didn't matter to me that they might not have even wanted to have the key. They just did their agora duty through the centuries to do it perfectly, to give me that box. Okay. And that triggered just such a love in my fraternal heart for all these old farts and the old farts before them and the old farts.
No, I can completely relate. Are you Scottish Rite? Are you York Rite? Are you anything beyond blue?
Oh no, just 32nd degree Scottish Rite. But and I was lucky enough in the years I went through that the Long Beach Scottish Rite did them all.
Oh, okay.
And the ones they didn't completely mount, okay, you spent a whole evening on it, and they exemplified it and set up the the Long Beach Scottish Rite was so old and so near to Hollywood that the sets and costumes and everything.
Oh yeah, I could imagine.
World class and old. Yeah.
That must have been an experience. So speaking on Masons, you had the opportunity to meet Israel Regardie.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, tell us about your personal experience. You said Mason. I was going to say old farts that we're talking about.
Well, if Regardie was an old fart, he was the coolest, most charming old fart that we've ever met. It was in the very early days of our lodge, Rue Rahal Lodge, Newport Beach.
O.T.O. Lodge?
O.T.O. Lodge. O.T.O. Lodge. One of my initiators was Helen Parsons Smith, who was the widow of both Jack Parsons of Strange Angel fame and Wilfred Smith, Lodge Master. Both of them were Lodge Masters of Agape Lodge, O.T.O. in Hollywood over the years. And Helen would visit us in our home in Costa Mesa during the very early years of the lodge, and she'd been friends with Regardie for years, and so was Grady McMurtry, who also initiated me O.T.O. But Helen
you were initiated by the OGs, right?
Grady McMurtry and Phyllis Seckler gave me my Minerval, and it was so long ago. It seems like, oh boy, were you lucky? Yeah, I was very lucky, but I was I was among the very first people that they initiated after Crowley's death and after Carl Germer's death, because the order didn't initiate after Crowley's death. The head of the O.T.O was Carl Germer, who had been the Grand Treasurer, and he decided not to initiate anymore, but to focus on publishing. And so the O.T.O almost died. There was only maybe 4 or 5 of the old 9th degree members from Crowley's day that were still alive. And 3 of those initiated me.
Wow.
Okay.
So what was Rigardi's personality like?
He was so charming. Okay. It was like meeting a character from Masterpiece Theater. Okay. Now, when you hear a recording of Rigardi, it sounds like he has sort of a speech defect, sort of like Elmer Fudd.
Yeah.
You know, flop over like a wag doll. You know, in person, you didn't hear that. You didn't hear it at all. I had to hear a recording before I said, "Yeah, that's the way he sounded." But why didn't I think it? Why didn't I think anything of that? But anyway, Grady McMurtry took Constance and I to his home in Studio City, probably around 1977 or 78. And we got there in the morning, and he's sort of a small person, diminutive in stature, had a slight English accent, but it was sort of a working class accent, you know, not Australian or Cockney, but it made a working class English accent. And he sat us down immediately, and it must have been about 10 o'clock in the morning. And he says, "How about a champagne cocktail?" But yeah. So he gets out the whole stuff, the sugar cube and the bitters and the champagne and the shallow glasses, and so we talked about things, because it was just when the O.T.O was getting firmly established again, and Grady wanted to make sure that Rigardi was supportive of that activity, because Grady had no one else to turn to when he presented his paperwork from Crowley that he could do that. He wanted the old guards to say, "I'm doing the right thing."
Yeah.
So there was.
But Rigardi was never O.T.O, right?
Crowley addressed Rigardi in letters as TI, which is a ninth degree thing. But you got to remember that the O.T.O, the way it's functioning now with all the degrees and all of the governing bodies and everything else, never existed in Crowley's lifetime. The Agape Lodge in Hollywood was the only active functioning O.T.O lodge in the world. And during Crowley's last years, and they only initiated up to the second, perhaps, I don't have proof, perhaps the 3rd degree. So there wasn't a governing of, when you read about the manifesto and the bylaws and the open letter to those who would join the order that Crowley wrote in the Equinox, that was all in Crowley's head. The O.T.O only functioned in its capacity when Crowley was alive, of Crowley personally delivering the degrees that he understood were at the level of consciousness that the magicians he was working with could handle or administrate. Like for Grady, he made Grady a ninth degree during the war, when Grady was in the military in England. But that was for organizational purposes. Don't let the O.T.O die. It's gonna die. When I die, it's gonna die. And somebody does something. So the O.T.O had to be built from about the time they initiated me, few others, and Grady made what he called battlefield ninth degrees, so people could open up lodges across the United States. They did that. We did that. Okay. So regarding never belonged to anything like that, because there was nothing like that for him to belong to. And Regarding in his living room, over champagne cocktails, stressed that he was a Golden Dawn man. And Regardi took us to lunch, and at that luncheon, Grady even said, "Look, Francis, well, I would like to recognize you as a ninth degree in the O.T.O." And he declined. He said, I will be much more value to you if I'm not in the O.T.O. But at that meeting, and that he greeted us with, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law."
Oh, wow. Okay.
Coming and going. He said, "I'm a Thelemite." He quote, "I'm a Thelemite, but I'm a Golden Dawn man."
Yeah.
Because I tell you, most of the world's Thelemites don't even know there's a word for what they are.
Yeah, I could imagine that.
And they don't have to know about Crowley. They don't have to know about Aeons or anything else. They're just living the formula.
Yeah.
They're just Thelemites. They just have figured out what their will is, and they're doing it. Don't bother me with a religion.
Yeah.
One little more tidbit with Regardi. We discovered that we were both D-Malay when we were kids. And the conversation went to the fact that we both were receiving a lot of letters from people that thought that they were the incarnation of Aleister Crowley.
Wow.
And we were sort of laughing about it, And I don't mean to laugh. If be whoever you wanted to be, I wasn't there. So we decided we would pool our letters and get it published as Liber Nuts. And he would learn about somebody that wrote him and said that he was Crowley and he wanted to be recognized as such, and that he'd written a book. And so Regardi says, "He's in your neighborhood. Go to his book signing." And so we did that on and off. And when he died, I was involved with his publisher, and we were going through his effects, and I found the file for Liber Nuts.
Really?
I found the file folder for liver nuts. There was nothing in it. I said, oh, what did he do with it? But anyway, and he was the one that called me at work. I worked at a medical device manufacturing place in the lab. And he called me at work and wanted me to exorcise one of his patients was a psychologist too, and one of her patients convinced she needed an exorcism. Let's put it that way. And
Wow.
And because officially, if you're into that kind of stuff, it takes a bishop, somebody
Yeah.
with apostolic juju.
Yeah.
And I was the only one he knew. And so he called me, and that's a whole chapter in my life with the spirits, I think.
You're
Anyway.
the Archbishop?
Huh?
You're the Archbishop to Iglesia Gnostica still?
Yeah.
What is that about? What does that look like?
Well, it's like it's like a church within an order.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah. Crowley rightly observed that most people are probably not ever going to be interested in magic stuff. You know,
Yeah.
there's not the Enochian University, you know. But that the magical formula actually needs a religious form of expression for people who just need to get into the swing of this new self-identity.
Yeah.
And so he got all inspired when he was in Moscow, and he saw, I guess, a fabulous Russian Orthodox Mass. And he goes, this is 99% perfect. All we
Yeah.
have to do is tweak just a little bit around there, and then we ought to stick a priestess on the freaking altar. And we've got ourselves this beautiful ceremony. And not only that, the formula of the magic ceremony is so universal, so perfect, that it corresponds with the great magical treasure of the Holy Grail that the O.T.O, the higher degrees of the O.T.O, deal with too. So it's just perfect. So you can take your grandma, you know, that's nice, you know. And it is nice. You know, it really is nice. So
Do you know anything about Crowley's stay in Mexico? And I've heard a conspiracy theory that he received the 33rd degree of the Scottish Rite in Mexico City, and that he made some 9th degree O.T.O Mason. The people that made him a 33rd degree, he in turn made them a 9th degree O.T.O. Is that true?
I wouldn't doubt that. I wouldn't doubt that a bit. He had the the credentials and magical authority to do that. It was a steer no Scottish Rite, but of Masonry. But he is a Sir No 33rd degree Mason. But as you know, most Masons don't recognize other
Yeah.
don't recognize other Masons. You know, technically, American Masons aren't, or American Blue Lodge Masons aren't even recognized by the Grand Lodge of England. You know,
That's right.
you can still show up there. Okay. But officially they don't. But the ones they do recognize are the Prince Hall in America, Prince Hall Masons. Yeah. And so there are jurisdictions that recognize other jurisdictions and some that don't. And I think UGLE, or the United Grand Lodge of England, didn't really recognize the Cyrano Scottish Rite, but just like they don't recognize my FNAM,
Right. Well, the reason I asked, I was initiated into Masonry in Mexico. And so I have a lot of brothers that I still stay in touch with down in Mexico. And at some point, I know a brother that received a 33rd degree in Mexico City. And the next thing I saw was him wearing an O.T.O tag. And so I was wondering if there was still a connection between 33rd and O.T.O down there.
Oh, that'd be yeah. The Lamin is
yes,
is it's not a universal thing per se, but it's more generic than just the O.T.O.
Okay.
And but I wouldn't completely rule out the fact that maybe he is O.T.O. There is O.T.O in or O.T.O individuals and groups forming in Mexico, and so
listen, El Paso has nothing in regards to magical orders. If we could get you guys down here, you have already made adepts here.
Well, I went to El Paso once when I was 5.
Really?
On my way to Juarez.
All right. I was initiated in Juarez.
Oh.
It's still the old French system. Initiations over there are very visceral, and you have the reflection chamber and stuff that you don't see over here.
Oh, I love the chamber of reflection.
Yeah.
And me and a couple others tried to get one going at the Long Beach Lodge. And there was, things evolve slowly.
Yeah, bureaucracy. Don't you love it?
It evolves slowly. And there are some hills that are worth dying on and some that aren't.
Exactly. Lon, we've taken 27 minutes more of the time we asked you for. I really appreciate it.
Likewise, just see yourself, you're like a living legacy right now. And we really appreciate the time that you've given with us. And if there's any words you want to give to any fellow, people on this journey, we would love to hear them.
Oh, just love and do what thou wilt.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
And if you're only going to do one of them, love.
Love. Yeah. I see you're still a hippie at heart. You're awesome. Thank you so much.
All right.
Have a good one.
93.